What is going on, everybody? Paul here, coming at you with the Crypto Coffee update. You know, it's all the news, events, conferences, all that good stuff that you want to see from the crypto world and beyond. There's a lot to keep up on. And of course, you know, since we're here together, I got my coffee for the simultaneous sip. So, join me. Fantastic, energizing stuff. All right, let's jump into it. You can see here we have Crypto Panic open in front of us. That's just one of my favorite crypto news aggregation sites, so I like to give them a plug at the beginning of the episode, just whenever I feel like it, so you too can begin to do your own research and get an idea of what kind of information is happening on the daily. You can see here this entire area is from 14 minutes all the way down to just an hour ago, so new stuff happening all the time. Also, please bear with me, my voice is a little scratchy. It's been hot, cold here, so if I cough or do this, that, or the other, we're just going to have to deal with it. So let's go ahead and jump into the news. Non-crypto related, well, tendentially crypto related, you'll see why. France is in chaos. Macron mulling state of emergency amid what's known as the Yellow Vest protest. And this has been a huge protest, the biggest one to occur in Paris in decades, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And it really was set off, not so much directly caused by, but largely set off by an increase in fuel taxes. This is due to offset, according to Macron, issues with the climate change. However, this came at a really rough time, given that most of the French population is really ailing in terms of a really rigid economy, very difficult to hire individuals in France if you're running a business, and of course just the general difficulty with the declining economic state of the European Union as a whole. So this was kind of a culmination of various events that was set off by an increase in tax. Well, many are saying it in a tone-deaf way. 86%, it's 84 or 86% of all individuals surveyed said that they support these protests. So just to let you know how just flagrantly disliked Macron is at this stage, along with his incumbent government. You see pictures here, cars on fire, some violent individuals. Hey, I said it was tendentially related. Buy Bitcoin. There it is right there in front of you. But yeah, so suffice to say, this is definitely something that is worth keeping an eye on. Macron says he doesn't have plans to change these reforms, but will enter into dialogue, something he previously said he would not do. And this is just something that echoes a lot of the tone-deaf nature of the elite and the upper class. This is a caliber of individuals who, largely due to wealth concentration, which was really accentuated during the last financial crisis, are largely completely isolated from the struggles of your modern daily individual. Somewhere in this article, maybe the other one that was pulled up, essentially Macron told a young man who said, look, I can't find a job anywhere. Macron just said, well, all you have to do is move and cross the street. There are jobs everywhere. So just to highlight how the tone-deaf nature of the aristocracy can be at times. And just to drive this home, climate change activists are largely hypocrites. And wherever you fall on the climate change argument, I don't care. I'm just here to look at the data. And there's tons of data available for this subject. It's one of the big contentious issues that are occurring in our world today in terms of global debate. So I just find it fascinating. But nonetheless, this study did come out by Cornell. I know it's a bold claim to make, but essentially it was a study of 600 participants, asked them whether they are highly concerned, cautiously worried, or skeptical about climate change, and found that while those who are highly concerned about climate change were obviously the most supportive of governmental solutions and initiatives to curb what they see as a huge detrimental force, those who were cautiously worried or skeptical were much more likely to engage in individual activities that would offset climate change in a sustainable way. Things like recycling, limiting water usage, just doing more ecologically minded activities integrated into one's daily routine. So it goes to show that even though these individuals support huge government action on the part of curbing what they see again as a major threat, they don't necessarily take that into their own lives and augment their actions to reflect what they would rather superimpose on other individuals using the authority of the state. So kind of a do as I say, not as I do mentality that may or may not relate back to the insulation that we see on the part of the elites from the general struggle of the individual. Not to mention, there was a major issue with a paper that came out recently about how global warming was much worse than previously assumed. This was a mathematical error that largely wasn't addressed. It's fantastic analysis about how basically it was off base. I'll see if the tweets are down here. No, that was from the other article. But nonetheless, this study will be in the link below in the description that breaks down some of the mathematical discrepancies in the assertion that was never largely retracted in the public eye, but was in academic circles largely retracted and addressed, which is great, shows academic integrity, something I always just love to see. And with that said, there's suddenly a far bigger European problem than Brexit or Italy. This is why this is so important and contentious, is that France is largely being seen as a black swan at this stage. 100,000 people in the streets, protests just raging at this point, and a tone-deaf president at the helm may make for some very interesting, you could to say the least, outcomes for the European Union should these sort of things continue. So with that said, let's go ahead and roll over into a larger coalescence than just the European Union, looking at the G20. G20 leaders meeting in Argentina this weekend agreed to work on crypto asset regulation. Notice the terms crypto asset. So anything that's a cryptographic asset, such as Bitcoin, EOS, Ethereum, etc., and it's bringing the rules in line with the FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force. That's it. So many acronyms, guys, everywhere, all the time. So the FATF was updating some of their guidelines and regulations as to best handle this new emerging technology, and they basically in July 2018, when the G20 last met, they were going to hammer out some initiatives to regulate these type of cryptographic assets, but because of the FATF's augmenting their definitions, they had to postpone it until now. So really this is something that's been on the plate, it's been on the table, it's not necessarily something that's really hugely amazing, it's something we kind of expected, and largely runs concurrent with some of the individual national efforts to regulate these crypto assets, as we've seen in places like Singapore and South Korea, and to a more tepid degree here in the United States. Quote from what occurred over at the, I almost said IMF, the G20 meeting: "We will step up efforts to ensure that the potential benefits of technology in the financial sector can be realized while risks are mitigated. We will regulate crypto assets for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism in line with FATF standards, and we will consider other responses as needed." Section 25 from the Declaration of States. So, as said, this is kind of a broad stroke sort of thing. Definitely something that is committal, but not committal to the point where there's a lot of nuance or policy recommendations therein. We'll keep an eye on this going forward and keep you up to date on anything that occurs regarding this. So, more state stuff. Venezuela, of course, always fun to I shouldn't say fun, always interesting to examine Venezuela. I said that sarcastically, but even then, it's just such a horrible situation there. It's difficult and almost gut-wrenching to even poke fun of it. Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, he's kicking up the price of the Petro, which is the failed cryptocurrency that doesn't have a wallet still after all this time. He's raised the price by more than 100%. Obviously, the dude's not that smart. Maybe he's extremely intelligent in the sense that he can hold on to dictatorial power and just cause mass human suffering, if you can count that level of sociopathy and psychopathy as smart. Because if you can't buy it, why are you going to raise the price? Obviously, it's to give the appearance that there's some kind of natural demand for this in an attempt, obviously, to stave off what's now the worst hyperinflation the world has ever seen, having surpassed Weimar Germany. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. He says he's raising the price from 3,600 bolivars to 9,000 bolivars, maybe even to keep in line with the inflation that's occurring. But yeah, as said, there's still no active wallet for it, which is just really goes to show just how dumb this digital Petro is. They're still giving certificates of purchase to buyers, so really something like a new currency being issued half-heartedly. But as said, we'll keep you up to date as this goes forward, but never good stuff coming out of Maduro's economic cabinet, to say the least. And of course, we have the largest custodian in the world, the 226-year-old State Street. It's a bit of a tongue twister there, guys, but suffice to say they have $33 trillion at their disposal of clients' money in order to manage, and those clients have some high interest in crypto in general. Notice that it doesn't say Bitcoin or a specific crypto, it just says they're interested in these cryptographic assets that the G20 has stated they wish to regulate. So that's reasonable. This is a huge institution. They manage a lot of wealth, and any extremely high earning or high income individual, high net worth, I believe, is the name of the caliber. Any high net worth individual is assumingly going to wait until there's more clear regulation before going full force into what's largely been praised as a new institutional asset class that is emerging in the form of these crypto assets. You can see here a quote: "We follow our clients' assets. We do talk to our clients who are interested in doing this, and we are looking at this very closely. But we are not putting a sign that we are opening for business. That said, we are a blockchain-friendly firm. We are involved in the vertical." So they're definitely keeping an eye out as to what's going on. I'm assuming when they say involved in the vertical, it means they're willing to come down vertically from where they are and interact with what has been built, rather than approaching it from a horizontal way in which they help to build out this ecosystem. So with that concept, we could say something like Bakkt and the Intercontinental Exchange, things like Fidelity, they really entered into this space in a horizontal kind of way, whereas this huge entity, State Street, is entering from a more top-down vertical fashion, interacting with the existing framework. Now, that's very interesting because these large lumbering institutions with $33 trillion at their disposal, enough to move markets and then some, given that the market cap of crypto is less than $100-something billion right now. That just goes to show how huge this amount of money is in comparison to the existing market cap today. they need some kind of infrastructure. And Amazon Managed Blockchain does exactly that. No, this video is not sponsored by Amazon Managed Blockchain, but Amazon, give me a call. Suffice to say that it's a really amazing development going on. There's a lot of contention. Oh, gotta refresh this. A lot of contention about whether or not this is really a blockchain similar to EOS. Can it be called a blockchain if it all runs through permissioned architecture? And that's a huge debate that we can save for another time. But it's very interesting because this is something institutions that we just discussed, things like State Street, they really want to see, because it gives them a type of architecture that they not only are familiar with, but it's streamlined, very user-friendly, and offers a level of auditability for both regulators and these involved institutions alike that is regulatory compliant, it's immutable, and also it's understandable. It's something they're used to using without having to delve into, in a horizontal way, building out proprietary solutions. Again, they're approaching this from a vertical kind of fashion. So if Amazon is a lens through which they can approach blockchain vertically, this could be very good for the space. What I found particularly interesting is the fact that they are using two different frameworks, the Hyperledger Fabric and Ethereum. And I found that just fascinating, and they talk about the difference between those two here. The fact that Hyperledger Fabric is fantastic for stringent privacy requirements and permission controls with a known set of members, for example, financial application where certain trade-related data is only shared with select banks. Right now, a lot of the huge institutions use what's called dark pools. It's something that's just set up by one of the institutions, and of course they can swap assets back and forth, kind of in a backroom sort of way, but think less cigar smoky, anti-government, not anti-government, but very almost criminally-esque kind of backroom, and more so just things that need to get done in order to transfer assets in a seamless, quick way between multiple parties. And it's completely regulatory compliant, good to go. But one of the biggest issues is that sometimes these financial institutions, with all the money they're transacting, are incentivized to maybe, let's say if I'm the host, give myself an extra 5 milliseconds, right? And that means a lot when you're dealing with $33 trillion worth of assets. So having something that is similar to a dark pool in which these institutions can communicate and corroborate information without a trusted arbiter, and that, again, we're not going to get into whether or not Amazon could be considered the trusted arbiter in this sense. It's huge for these financial institutions. Ethereum, well suited for distributed blockchain networks where transparency of data to all members is important. For example, customer loyalty blockchain networks, so something like that for retail. So suffice to say, some really amazing implications for what Amazon is doing, and with a big name like Amazon, it's really little wonder what direction this space is headed ultimately. You know, maybe we have another 3 months, 6 months, a year and a half worth of bear market. Hey, who knows? All I know is that this data is telling me that distributed ledger technology, these kind of digital systems, they're here to stay. So really interesting stuff. And if we're going to be having a little bear market for a while, why not check out some awesome conferences headed your way? So let's talk about what's going down December 3rd, Monday. Gartner Identity and Access Management Summit 2018 is happening in Las Vegas. The AI World Conference and Expo is happening in Boston. BlackHat Europe 2018 in London. And the 2018 Annual Computer Science Security Applications Conference in Puerto Rico. That one's a mouthful. Next up, we have December 4th, Tuesday. We have the Blockchain Opportunity Summit in New York and the PRDC 2018 Summit happening in Taipei. That's all we have for December 4th, and for this Crypto Coffee update, check the description below for the B list. We have all kinds of tokens there and coins, some of which are more reputable than others, but nonetheless, I'd like to give you an idea and a finger on the pulse of what's going on for the next couple days, so let me know what you think of that below in the comments. But for now, my name is Paul. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, seriously, you guys are awesome. Leave me a comment below, let me know what you thought. And remember, the tide is rising, as is the institutional interest.